Call this meeting of the Westland City Council to order. We'll begin tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Michael Londo.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Councilman Godbout.
Present.
Councilwoman Green.
Present.
Councilman Hersberg.
Here.
Councilman Londo.
Here.
Councilman McDermott.
Here.
Councilwoman Rakowski.
Present.
President Hart.
Here.
A quorum is present.
We'll move into special announcements and presentations. And tonight, we think it's appropriate to remember the life of John Lewis. John Lewis was born the son of sharecroppers in 1940 and witnessed firsthand the racial injustices of being a young black man in the South. In March of 1965, he suffered a brutal beating during a historic march in Selma, Alabama, and had the scars to show for it his whole life. John was a longtime champion of the civil rights movement and turned his activism into positive change through legislative action. Starting in 1987, John Lewis served as a U.S. representative for Georgia's 5th Congressional District, and for more than 3 decades was widely seen as a moral conscience of Congress because of his decades-long embodiment of nonviolent fight for civil rights. His passionate oratory was backed by a long record of demonstrating against racial and social injustice. A follower and colleague of Martin Luther King Jr., he participated in lunch counter sit-ins, joined the Freedom Riders in challenging segregated buses, and at the age of 23 was a keynote speaker at the historic 1963 March on Washington. While we mourn his passing, it is incumbent on all of us that we carry his message forward for generations to come. He reminded us that we can do better, we should do better, and we will do better. One of my quotes I love most from John is, "I believe race is too heavy a burden to carry into the 21st century. It's time to lay it down. We all came here in different ships, but now we're all in the same boat." If you would all join me in a moment of silence for John Lewis. Thank you. We'll now move to questions and input on the agenda from the public. This section will allow a person to be recognized only at the beginning of the meeting to address the council pertaining to items that are specifically on the business agenda at the meeting. Questions asked will be answered during the agenda item following a motion and support from the council. Are there any questions from the council, or excuse me, from the public? First question I have from the public on the agenda item comes from Mr. Pruitt.
Hello, this is Pastor Edward Pruitt, and I thank you for the time to be in front of you. I stand speaking about the agenda item, racism is a health crisis. It is disheartening to know that it takes a demand from many different areas to try to get the council to do what is just and right. We've had a Better Westland for weeks demanding change, Michigan United to email, phone, and text blast. We've had door knocking. We've had pastors even going to the mayor to change his stance on it. For these attempts, it is troubling. It is frankly sad and even more disheartening that the community has to come out in force to proclaim that respectfully, 6 white council members don't speak for, nor do they know what's in the best interest of the African-American community. That is sad and troubling. In Mayor Wild's 2017 State of the City address, he demonstrated and spoke to a lack of diversity in the police department. What's really troubling is in that time, from 2017 to 2020, nothing has changed. In his administration, he has no African Americans on his administrative team, nor on his executive team. How can you demonstrate that you know what it takes to do diversity? And then when we look further, in a male-dominated society, it is common practice for men to tell a woman that he gave her the opportunity, that she should be happy with what she receives, that she should know her place and deal with it. This is the same thing that happens with men and women in the African American community and women as a whole. This is what Council President James Hart did to Councilwoman Tasha Green when he communicated in these exact terms, quote, "I put this on the agenda on your request alone," even though his name's on it, "and as a professional courtesy." This statement demonstrates two things. His name as the author on this resolution lacks truthfulness as he communicated that quote, that she put it on alone, that because it was, as he stated, done as a professional courtesy. That tells many people in the Black community, you've just told them to deal with it and to know your place. We need you to put forth the original resolution and attribute it truthfully. The other piece is every time a racially oppressive and unjust situation occurs, the expectation from many in the African community is that a resolution, a policy, or a law will get put in place with no teeth. It will just be there and nothing will be done. We've had a city statement 3/2/2020 where it was proved 7-0.
Mr. Pruitt, your time is up. Thank you. The next I have is phone number ending in 017. 017.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
I can.
Thank you, Council President Hart. Richard Graham from Westland and also with Move Westland Forward. Good evening, everyone. Under consent calendar item D and the Hubbard Park playground equipment for almost $45,000. I reviewed the plans and building materials to be used. This does not seem to be a wheelchair-friendly and in general handicap-friendly park. I do not see any type of handicap swings or other structures, and the ground material seems to be of a fiber type material. Why is this being done without any type of ADA, handicap, wheelchair features, etc., unless I'm missing some of the details in the paperwork within the agenda? I assume we want to be a compassionate city within our park system. So I'm curious to learn more about that park and being, I guess, friendly for those with disabilities. Under consent calendar E and the proposed changes to the off-street parking loading requirements, I see in the documents the number of the parking spaces will be reduced based on the size of the building, so less space is needed. Maybe just modern, caught up with the times. I do not see anywhere in the document the amount of handicap spaces that are needed or changing, so can someone advise on this specifically? In the vouchers, it is good to see an accountability from the amounts the local businesses receive via the federal government CARES money based on COVID. Looks like the city was setting aside $280,000 for the local businesses, and the total on the vouchers is $253,500 with 42 businesses. Is the full amount, $280,000, going to be given out? Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Next, I have Miss Wilson. Miss Wilson, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, please proceed.
I want to speak on the resolution. Although this resolution, I mean, it's been out on the books for, I guess, for a while now because it was mentioned in the July 6th meeting. And it went to the city lawyers for a review. And in principle, the resolution has merit. But since this is an effort for the entire city, and the minority population is in the southeast corner of the city, which I am a part of, Annapolis Park, the Southeast Westland Homeowners Association. We had no knowledge of the content of this resolution until we pulled it up on the website today. It didn't come to the homeowners, only a select few. I don't feel, like I said, the resolution has merit, but it should come to the homeowners down here also for review, and we might have had some more input to it, but this didn't happen. So I'd like for you guys to hold on to it for a minute until it's discussed among the homeowners down here, since we are the greatest population of Blacks in the city down here. And I'd also like to see you do a moment of silence for C.T. Vivian. He was also a civil rights activist that passed away also. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sean Whitehead, I believe. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. How are you? Attorney
Good.
Sean. I wanted to just echo what was stated as the first comment by Pastor Edward in regards to on the agenda of racism as a crisis. I was out there with a Better Westland for part of their 7 days, and I have to say that why would I take my time out right now to get on this call was because I am very concerned and I'm very disheartened by how social justice reform is being taken seriously and taken accounted for in Westland. I'm having friends tell me that while they are peacefully protesting, law enforcement is laughing at them. Now, I have seen Council Member Mike McDermott there. I have seen Council Member Tasha Green. We appreciate that type of support. But I really would think that with the civil unrest that's going on, that this would be more of a top priority to bring peace and also be able to bring policy and solutions for the people.
Are you still there?
That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have phone number ending in 405.
Hello there.
Hello.
So I called in today and I was present for the beginning here where you had a nice little tribute to John Lewis. And I'm wondering how it is that you can be so dedicated like that, but then with the racism as a health crisis bill that's coming through, you strip it of everything that it needs to have effect, to be anything more than just a symbolic victory. It just seemed sad to me. So I was wondering, what exactly are you guys doing to promote equality and economic equality with regard to that?
Is that it?
Yeah, I would like to see that this bill passes with its original wording and the original resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Gina Stewart, I believe. Gina Stewart.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak for a quick second. So I wanted to mention also the resolution that was brought up about racism as a health crisis. And I do remember, as you met Jim Hart, President, made your comment, you talked about John Lewis and his fight that he had since he was at the age of 23. So we do know that his main fight was for voting rights, but it also was for social justice and racial equality. I know that we started with the Western Wayne County NAACP, we started working on some different items with Westland Police Department and the community, as well as other cities in the Conference of Western Wayne. One thing we're doing is we're trying to make progress. And one thing we realize is that in order to make effective progress, we need to have partnerships. And when this resolution came about, we do realize that in order for it to be effective for the entire community, it's going to take a partnership of people to make the decisions about what the resolution should speak to. I'm not 100% sure that that was done with the resolution that was changed. I do know that other counties in the state of Michigan have bought into the resolution in the original format. And I'm thinking that if some changes were decided to be made, I'm thinking that the other community groups should have been included as well. I guess the only downfall that I have is that we come to the table with some events and some issues, but we need to come to the table with all of them. We can't be left out. If the Western Wayne County NAACP and some of the other groups are there when we're dealing with the issues, we need to be also at the table when the definition of the issues are being decided. And, you know, we were not. It wasn't mandatory, but I think it would have been a great gesture for us to sit together and come up with what we want the resolution to look like if we weren't going to accept the one that was passed unanimously by Wayne County on July 2nd. So my wish is that you guys not discuss it today, and then maybe we can all get together like we've been doing with our listening tours and have a combined effort in how we're going to eliminate systemic racism, not just in Westland, but all of the Western Wayne County communities. That's it.
Thank you. Next, we have Blake Perry.
Hey guys, I had to adjust my mic. Hey, it's Blake. I just wanted to come on here on the racist part. I think that we should look at it because sometimes people may not live here, but they grow up in a racist environment and they come here. So I dealt with the situation with a roommate, but I handled it positively. I brought him to the side and I told him you shouldn't say things like that. You could offend a person. So I think that we really need to look at the youth as well as people with disabilities and the proper way for them not to be racist. Because I was in a situation to where if it was somebody else, it would have turned negative. But me being a leader, I really pushed them to the side and said, you know, you shouldn't say something like that because you could offend people. So I think that there needs to be education among young people as well as people with disabilities. And I'm done.
Thank you, Blake.
No problem.
All right. I don't want to mess this up. Next one I have is Gina Shah and Jana Shah. I hope I didn't mess that up. I'm sure I did. Are you there?
I am. So I'll keep it brief. As far as I understand, Westland is 30% not white. And while I have no doubt that the council is qualified, I'm seeing very little representation of women, even less of people of color. And I think we all read the statistics in the paper whenever we bother to read the paper about the disproportionate impact of COVID and other societal problems on people of color. So if we're going to be truly representative, if this council turns down real language with teeth on that proposal, it'll demonstrate that it's not representative. I don't want to believe that. So I'm urging the council to pass the original language that truly recognizes racism as a public health crisis, as demonstrated by the data. And I think it's a matter of governance and accountability and true representation.
Can you come outside and more? Can you come outside?
Are you all set? Is that it?
I told you I'd keep it brief.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next, we have Ashley Stevens. Ashley?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, great. Just some facts. Tasha Green is the first African-American woman elected to the City Council. 0% diversity in the fire department in the history of Westland being a city. Currently less than 5% racial diversity for the police department. Minorities estimated to be 30% of the Westland citizen population. Mayor Weil has a 19-member mayoral cabinet, not one African American. Majority white city council, 6 of the 7 officials, a white mayor, a city attorney to remove sections of a racism solution that would require the city to make procedural changes to racial equality and anti-racism practices is nothing less than white supremacy. We need the original resolution for racism is a health crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I see no other hands up. At this time, we'll move over to the consent calendar. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion by Councilman Herzberg,
Support. Londo.
support by Councilman Londo. Is there any discussion from the maker, Councilman Herzberg? Any discussion from the supporter, Councilman Londo?
No, thanks, Council President.
All right, we did have some questions regarding item D, Hubbard Park. Kyle, can you speak to those, please?
Yes, I can through the chair, and thank you guys. This is a agreement from the last meeting with Wayne County in regards to purchasing the play structure. What's on the consent calendar today is the actual purchase of said play structure. I know there was a question about transition stations and ADA compliance. I've been working with our facilities director, Vic Barra, and we have, there's another part of our project that is not included in this, in these monies. That's going to include a 200-foot walking path that's going to go directly to the transition station that is on the play structure. This will be able to let the a person with a wheelchair be able to access all of the amenities on the play structure. I know there was a question about the synthetic mulch as well, and that is technically considered wheelchair accessible. So we have covered our bases on that as well. So,
thank you. We did have a question on item E, parking spaces. Mo, can you answer those, please?
Yep. Good evening, everyone. So we discussed this earlier. This the zoning ordinance amendments do not impact federal regulations or requirements for ADA parking spaces. So whatever is required through the ADA Act for parking spaces will still be the requirement. We're changing the general parking requirements at the local level only. So no impact to ADA requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Mo. This time, is there any discussion from the council? Any discussion from the council? Question from Councilman McDermott.
Thank you. So I did have something on item D, but that's already been addressed by Kyle. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Item B, in terms of the, I guess the event that's being held, how are we going to be enforcing the mask and social distancing rules, and who will ultimately be responsible for enforcing it at that event?
through the chair, I'd like to answer that question.
Please do.
We're going to be creating A-frame signs, with social distancing in mind. Because it's a crowded space, the executive order is in place. Crowded spaces are requiring masks. Our park rangers will be on staff that day, reminding people to wear masks. We'll do the best we can, but we're going to have signage all over the park and making sure that people are aware that the executive order still is in place for this event.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any other questions from the council? Any other questions from the council? Roll call.
Councilman Godbout.
Yes.
Councilwoman Green.
Yes.
Councilman Herzberg.
Yes.
Councilman Londo.
Yes.
Councilman McDermott.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rakowski.
Yes.
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Council has approved the following consent calendar items. Minutes of the regular meeting held July 6, 2020. Approval of a request from Len Fisher and the Inspire Theater to host a Music in the Park event. at the Lions Pavilion Farmers Market Building in Central City Park on August 22 and/or August 23, 2020, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Approval of a one-year service agreement extension with SVT for audiovisual system services. Total annual cost not to exceed $16,755. Approval of purchase of Hubbard Park playground equipment for Parks and Recreation, purchase from Mid-State Recreation, amount not to exceed $44,750. Introduction of ordinance 248A98 to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Westland by amending section 110.9.5, Article 16, Chapter 110, entitled Off-Street Parking and Loading Requirements. Introduction of ordinance 248A99 to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Westland by amending sections 110.9.5, Article 9, Chapter 110, entitled CB2 Shopping Center Commercial Business District. The last item approved on the consent calendar today, adoption of ordinance 177A3, an ordinance to amend the Westland City Code by amending section 110.2.1 to rescind a temporary moratorium on applications for permits or licenses to establish new massage establishments. This item had been introduced July 6, 2020. Moving to new business, item 1, approval of special land use for proposed auto detailing facility, 6552 Commerce Drive, south of Warren, east side of Commerce Drive. This is Planning Department number 2240.
So moved. Support.
There's a motion by Councilman Godbout. I didn't catch the support. Raise your hand so I can see who did. Supported by Councilman Hertzberg. Mo?
I'm going to share my screen. Give me a second. All right. Going to quickly run through this. This one's the subject property is located just west of Warren on the east side of Commerce Drive. The applicant is proposing an auto detailing use in a vacant 1,768 square foot suite in the multi-tenant industrial building. The property comprises of about 1 acre and is zoned I-1 light industrial. The petitioner proposes no exterior renovations and the use will involve interior car cleaning services inside the vacant. So no uses will trickle out to the outside except perhaps parking of vehicles that need to be serviced. Again, there will be no outdoor storage of any kind, accessory to the use, operations conducted wholly indoors. Some information that you may want to know. The site is located within an industrial subdivision, but abuts a residential zoned property there to your east, to your right-hand side. Most of the available off-street parking, access points, and circulation are located on the industrial side of the property. There is some parking in the rear on the east side adjacent to the residential property, but screened. The operating schedule will be Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. Through 7 p.m. The Planning Commission recommended approval unanimously, however, subject to the following conditions that were recommended by the Planning Department. And these conditions were not, I'll read them off in a second, were not imposed specifically for this individual, but will probably be presented for future auto-oriented uses, just to make sure that all uses auto-oriented are in compliance in the future. Number 1, all operations related to auto detailing use shall be conducted wholly indoors. Number 2, no junk or inoperable vehicles shall be parked in the parking lot of the facility. There shall be no vehicle sales conducted from the site as a result of this use. The petitioner has agreed to these terms and he is on the call if you'd like to speak to him.
All right, let's see. And the petitioner is whom?
Mohammed, can you raise your hand, please?
There we are. Mohammed, do you have anything to add?
No, everything's good.
Okay. Well, first I'll move to the mover. Does the mover have any discussion or comments? Councilman Godbout? You're muted, sir.
No, I don't have any questions on it.
Does
Thanks.
supporter have any comments? Councilman Herzberg? No?
No, no discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other discussion from the council? Let me go back to the other screen. Is there any other discussion from the council? Roll call.
Councilman Godbout,
Yes.
Councilwoman Green,
Yes.
Councilman Herzberg,
Yes.
Councilman Londo,
Yes.
Councilman McDermott,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rakowski,
Yes.
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mohammed. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
New business item 2, approval of hazard payouts for public safety employees.
So moved.
Support.
All right. So who moved?
Rutkowski.
Councilman
Support,
Rakowski
Londo.
supported.
Londo.
Councilman Londo. All right. I'm having internet difficulties, so if any time I drop out, I might have to hand them over to Council President Pro Tem Londo, and if it gets bad, I'll permanently hand over the gavel for the remainder of the meeting if it becomes an issue. So we have a motion by Councilman Rakowski, supported by Councilman Londo. Mayor, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you, Council President, and it appears that the City Council is in favor of this item. It was kind of spelled out in your council packets exactly what it is. This is actually CARES Act money that'll be flowing through the state of Michigan back to the city of Westland if you approve this tonight. And the payouts would be $1,000 for each of the city's both police and fire department employees. There's a couple stipulations in there that give you details on which employees, but they're basically from the chiefs down, but it does not cover clerical, unfortunately, which was something that was laid out as part of the CARES Act. But if council approves on this, we have actually already submitted for it. If you approve it, then we will, as part of the way that it works, is that we'll pay each of these individuals probably in the next pay period, and then we will be expecting reimbursement from the state, I believe, possibly as early as September. So if you don't have any other questions, Steve Smith's on the line too, and Steve actually handled the application himself. Thanks.
Okay. Well, at this time, are there any comments from the maker?
I'd just like to thank the administration for hard work with the application and recognizing the dedication of our police and firemen.
Comments from the supporter, Councilman Londo?
I just echo what Councilwoman Rakowski said. This is something I mentioned back in April, and the mayor pulled me aside and said, listen, I think the feds are going to come through on this, but if not, we're going to make sure to take care of our hardworking men and women here in Westland. So thank you, Mayor, for making that commitment and for taking care of them.
Thank you. Are there any other discussion from the council? Councilman Herzberg.
Thank you. So this item's about $141,000, and there's a note here in our packet that says reimbursement is not guaranteed. So I guess my only question is, do we have a backup plan on which part of the budget money's going to come out of to fund this if the state doesn't hand down the money?
Mayor? Steve, do you have that one?
Yep. So through the chair, obviously this grant is first come, first serve. And we handed in the paperwork relatively early. The deadline to hand in paperwork is September 30th. So we think we have a really good shot to secure the money. Obviously, if we don't, then the money will have to come out of the police and fire budgets with a budget amendment, because this money was not budgeted. So,
okay. We don't have any info on how many cities have applied for this as of yet?
We do not know.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other comments from the council? Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilman Godbout,
Yes.
Councilwoman Green,
Yes.
Councilman Herzberg,
Yes.
Councilman Londo,
Yes.
Councilman McDermott,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rakowski,
Yes.
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. New business, item 3, adoption of prepared resolution to concur in the rules and regulations concerning industrial pretreatment program as adopted by the Great Lakes Water Authority.
So move, Council President Londo.
Thank you.
Support.
We got a motion by Councilman Landau, supported by Councilman Godbout. Mr. Fasson?
Certainly. Thank you, Council President. This is a concurring resolution required by Great Lakes Water Authority and their statutory setup. It's replacing the current City of Detroit IPP regulations, which were adopted and made part of the City of Westland ordinances under the new structure where Great Lakes Water Authority is taking over or has taken over on a long-term lease from City of Detroit. It's incumbent on the authority to adopt its own set of similar rules and regulations dealing with industrial pretreatment program. That's a federal program required by Federal Clean Water Act. So the authority has put forth rules and regulations built on the model from the Federal Clean Water Act, in addition to what is in the City of Detroit ordinances, and then some modernization of those rules and regulations. So each of the customer communities is asked to pass a concurring resolution acknowledging that those within its geographic boundaries will be governed by the authority's IPP rules. I've provided in the packet the changes that are made from the current rules. As you see, they're pretty limited. But there are some new things, such as now there are testing and limits for PFAS, which is a contaminant that 40 years ago, when the original rules were adopted, PFAS wasn't known as something that should be measured and controlled. So there are a few things like that. I would not expect it to have any big impact on City of Westland industries or residents. Again, it doesn't really apply to residents, it applies to industry or commercial groups. And based on the customer base and that for example, the PFAS survey that's already been done, we're not expecting any real big impact here in the City of Westland. So along with the cities which were identified in your cover memo, who've already adopted the concurring resolution, I was told today that Grosse Pointe Woods, Chesterfield Township, Royal Oak Township, all passed resolutions 2 weeks ago. And that obviously a whole slew of people are doing it here in July and August as they try to get all the resolutions in by beginning of September. Thank you.
All right, is there any discussion from the mover? The maker?
No, thanks.
Any discussion from the supporter? Any other discussion from the council? Councilman Mike McDermott.
Thank you. Just a quick question through the chair to the city attorney. So I know this resolution addresses PFAS as well. One of the other concerns we've seen environmentally speaking here in Southeast Michigan is contaminants related to fertilizer runoff, which has created the toxic algae blooms in Lake Erie. Is that at all addressed in this resolution from GLWA?
First off, let me state that I think it's widely recognized that the Lake Erie algae bloom is attributable primarily to farming runoff of fertilizer in Northwest Ohio into the Maumee River. But that being said, while the IPP program does not address fertilizer directly, the Great Lakes Water Authority has one of the most stringent permit requirements for phosphorus and fertilizer in its discharge. And the reason this doesn't cover it is because fertilizer isn't dumped into the sewer, right? The fertilizer concern is spread on primarily farmland, but land in general. So this really deals with discharges to sewer systems by industrial or commercial operations. So it's slightly different issues.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Councilman Hertzberg.
Thank you, Council President. Along the lines of Councilman McDermott, that was a good question. I have some concerns here. It says in the memo, part of the memo, that this is going to regulate the discharge of toxic pollutants. which kind of means that some toxic pollutants are allowed. My question is, where's the table listing all of the pollutants and the permissible levels, and what do we have? It also talks about inspections in here. Is the city liable to handle the inspections? And then on the last 2 pages of the memory, we got a summary of updates, and it says, you know, page 3, 5, goes all the way up to page 112. Where is that document?
So the IPP rules themselves are over about 115 pages long. I did not submit the 115 pages to council. It looks largely like what's already in the ordinances that you have. You're right, some pollutants are always allowed in discharges, and it is these rules which will set limits along with permit limits as to how much an industry or a particular discharger may be allowed. One of the local limits, we mentioned 2 local limits that have been reduced in this particular regulation or rules put forth by the authority are lead and mercury. Both of those have been ratcheted down, and that's consistent with what Eagle or the old DEQ is doing on water quality standards throughout the state, applying that pretty consistently throughout the state, lowering both lead and mercury. In terms of inspections, these obligations fall directly on the authority, not on the city. And that's in part why this is coming out of the city ordinances where it currently rests. As my cover memo said, once this gets passed and concurred by all the communities, the city will be able to remove from its set of ordinances the existing ordinances that exist, because these ordinances by the authority will be controlling, and it'll be their function, the authority's function, to do those sorts of inspections.
Okay, I appreciate that, Attorney Fasone. And then if you could forward me those IPP rules, if you have a copy of it, I'd appreciate it.
I do. I'd be glad to send them to anybody who'd like them.
Thanks, and I'll check that out. I'm glad to hear that we're lowering some of the levels of lead and mercury. So, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion from the council? Is there any other discussion from the council? Roll call.
Councilman Gabel.
Yes.
Councilwoman Green.
Yes.
Councilman Hersberg.
Yes.
Councilman Londo.
Yes.
Councilman McDermott.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rakowski.
Yes.
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. New business, item 4, adoption of prepared resolution declaring racism is a public health crisis.
Is there a motion? Councilwoman Green, you have your hand up. Is that a motion?
No, and I wanted to make a statement, if that is acceptable.
No, we have to have a motion and then a support to get it on the table, and then we can have discussion under parliamentary procedure.
Motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilwoman Green. Is there support?
Support.
Support for Councilwoman Rakowski. Councilwoman Green, you're the maker?
Yes, thank you. First, I'd like
Floor is yours.
to, thank you. First, I'd like to start by thanking the community, the citizens of Westland, and everyone who took time to call into our meeting tonight to express concern and to encourage the city to have more discussion before we move forward with this very important resolution for our city. I'd also like to thank all community partners that have been involved with reaching out to us, urging us to do the right thing, who've been working hand in hand as our citizens and communicating their feelings about this matter. That includes Pastor Edward Pruitt of A Better Westland, Pastor John Duckworth of Gethsemane Baptist Church, Pastor John Hearn of the Inkster Ministerial Alliance, our very own Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, Senator Erica Geis, who sponsored the bill at the state house or at the state level with Senator Marshall Bullock, as well as the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus, I'd like to thank Michigan United for all of their support regarding this measure. FIMS for Dems, the Western Wayne branch of the NAACP, and again, all community partners that are named and unnamed. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Mayor William Wild and our members of Westland City Council for opening their hearts and minds to the feedback of the people that we work for in the city of Westland and who we represent, which are the residents. So thank you for hearing their pleas. And due to the fact that we've had overwhelming comments from the community tonight, urging City Council to take a second look, not only take a second look and move potentially in a different direction with this ordinance, but allow our community partners, which are our residents, the ability to attend a meeting, potentially a study session, so that they can weigh in with their thoughts before the 7 of us make a decision that impacts overwhelmingly impacts the African-American community in the city of Westland. And so with that, I will make a motion to postpone item number 4 under new business until the next city council meeting that occurs on Monday, August the 3rd, to give city council, the mayor, and our community the opportunity to come together in discussion and agreement regarding this very important resolution.
I'll support the motion.
We have a motion to move the item 4 till next council meeting on August 3rd by Councilwoman Green. It's supported by Councilman Herzberg. Is there any discussion from the council? Councilwoman Rakowski?
I would like to support that as well. And in doing so, do we have to then remove our first motion? Will we withdraw the first motion?
It would overrule the motion. It would basically just pull it right off the agenda and just move it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any, Councilman McDermott? I believe I see your hand up.
So a couple of different items. First, I'd like to thank Councilwoman Green for spearheading this initiative and getting this conversation going. In the first place, I had the opportunity to speak with her today, and I believe that we're making the right decision to table this for a future council meeting so we can get more community involvement. I had the opportunity to speak with a couple of Westland residents as well as some of those who are on this call, and they shared similar thoughts about that today. So I think that's important to get more dialogue. I'd also like to thank our council president Hart for initially getting this onto the agenda, even if we're gonna postpone it to make some potentially necessary changes. Thank you for your work on that as well, and thank you to the administration. But at this time, I'm glad to see that we're getting more community involvement and more discussion on this. And I'll just say shame on me for not reaching out and getting more community involvement in the first place. This is an issue that is really important to me and something that I very much care about. And I've heard from a lot of voices in the community on the call today and from people who, called me and I've had the chance to talk to over the weekend and today. And I will say it again, shame on me for not getting myself out in the community more to get more people's thoughts on this issue and this initiative that I know is something that personally, as a Caucasian male, does not impact me in the way it does members of the African-American community and communities of color here in the city of Westland and across the state. So again, shame on me for not getting more involvement and dialogue in there. So I will be in support of postponing it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Londo?
Point of order, Councilwoman Rakowski was first.
But she already spoke and you didn't, I don't believe.
I stand corrected. No, thank you, Council President. Thank you, Councilwoman Green, for moving to postpone. I'm obviously all for more discussion and getting more voices at the table, including strong advocates of our community. I sent Councilwoman Green, I don't have the exact date in front of me, an email around the 4th of July holiday and stated that I had some resolutions from the Michigan Municipal League that I know the city attorney was looking at. I believe the administration was looking at it as well. It's something we kind of talked about internally while the council president was on vacation. So all for more discussion. I'd be happy to forward those documents over. There's about 5 documents from the Michigan Municipal League, which I know we're all big supporters of. So happy to have a study session on this and get some community feedback. Thanks a lot.
All right, Councilwoman Rakowski.
Thank you. I wanted to extend my gratitude to Councilwoman, because I know we like Councilwoman better, for bringing this to the council. I think it's very important. She has a unique perspective, and I'm so glad to serve with somebody who's going to champion this cause. And I also want to commend her bravery for saying, let's pull it back and address it appropriately and get our community stakeholders involved as well. It's very difficult to be 7 people trying to speak on something that 6 of us don't have a personal experience with. And it's very difficult to represent the people of our community correctly when we haven't heard them. We have the luxury of hearing Councilwoman Green, but we don't have the luxury of hearing what they want addressed, and that's very important to me. So Councilwoman Green, thank you. And I'm thankful to my colleagues who I believe are all on the same page with doing the right thing. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion from the council? Any other discussion? Councilman Herzberg.
Thank you. I'll just echo the comments of the other council members. I'm looking forward to sitting down in the study session. I think we're going to have a chance here to make it better than it would have been as is. And just to comment to you, Council President, we talked about doing this at a study session that was already planning on being scheduled with another agenda, but I did receive some emails. There was quite a few comments here today. So I think it would be important to do it in a separate study session so that the conversation doesn't get sidetracked. So, thank you.
Of course. Is there any other discussion? Any other discussion? Well, I'll go ahead and say to Councilman Green, thanks for making the motion to pull it back. When you gave me that resolution, I was really excited to get it forward. I wanted to move that forward. I couldn't make the last council meeting because it was so close, but it was in my haste and desire to act quickly on something we all felt was important. We tried to get it on this council agenda. And then, of course, after peeling the onion back, it needs more work and it needs more involvement. I appreciate all the comments from all of our colleagues so that we can all have a collective input on this, but also more having an open study session and inviting a lot of our local community and hear the voice of the entire community and really what's important, and being able to have all of that input so it's a council resolution, you know, not a couple people. So, and I think that's really important. So I'll be supporting as well. I think we all will. So if there's no other discussion, which I'll give up my last talking right again, and I see no hands, I will have a roll call.
Again, this motion is to postpone to the next meeting, which is August 3, 2020. Councilman Godbout.
Yes.
Councilwoman Green.
Yes.
Councilman Herzberg.
Yes.
Councilman Londo.
Yes.
Councilman McDermott.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rakowski.
Yes.
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. New business, item 5. Confirmation of appointment of Matthew Taransky to the Economic Development Authority, Tax Increment Finance Authority, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority to fill an unexpired term with the term to expire November 15, 2020.
So move, Londo.
Support.
I got motion by, hey, by the way, I love it when you guys say your name too. It really helps me. So I got a motion by Councilman Landau, supported by Councilwoman Rakowski. Mayor, did you have something to say about this nomination and appointment, rather?
I do, and thank you, Council President. Matthew Taransky has been part of the community for 22 years. Most of you probably know him as the owner of Olympic Coney Island in Westland. I think anybody that knows him knows that he refers to his business as his second home, and that's not just because he's there every single day. It's because it means a lot to him and his family. Matthew's married, got 3 wonderful children, 13, 11, and 5. He graduated from Western Michigan University with a degree in business. In his spare time, he's coached his son's hockey teams for the last 8 years. So, Council, we ask you tonight to consider the appointment of Matthew Taransky to the EDC TIFA board. Thank you.
Very good. Any discussion from the maker?
No.
All right. Any discussion from the supporter?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Very good. Is there any other discussion from the council? I have a hand raised from Councilman Herzberg.
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to the mayor, I was hoping you were going to address why is he being appointed for such a short term, And also, why are we putting one person on 3 boards? I'm assuming maybe one of these boards doesn't have a quorum right now and he stepped forward. If you could just elaborate on that a little bit more. Thank you.
Mayor?
Through the chair, Matthew will be finishing a term that was previously held by Mark Deal. So that's why it's finishing a term as opposed to a new term. And Councilman, you may remember that over the past, we have also designated the TIFA. Well, actually, the EDC board is the TIFA board. It's been that way, EDC, TIFA forever. And council in the last year or so, you actually by resolution also designated this board as the Brownfield board. So it's one board that actually oversees 3 different duties for the city. Thank you.
Okay, just to clarify, Mark Deal held all 3 of those previously?
Every member that's on that board currently serves on all 3 of those. Their meetings are held concurrently, the EDC and TIFA, and then the Brownfield meets when there's a Brownfield project that's in the pipeline. But yeah, everybody that's on that board currently serves in all 3, Councilman.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the council? Is there any other discussion from the council? Roll call.
Councilman Godbout,
Yes.
Councilwoman Green,
Yes.
Councilman Hersberg,
Yes.
Councilman Londo,
Yes.
Councilman McDermott,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rakowski,
Yes.
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. New business, item 6, approval of voucher.
So move, Londo.
Motion by Councilman Londo.
Support, Councilman Godbout.
Support from Councilman Godbout. There is a question on the vouchers regarding the CARES Act money. Steve or the mayor, are you prepared to field that question at the moment?
Yeah, I can take that question through the chair. There will be additional on next vouchers. So this was a majority of them were processed on this vouchers, but there will be additional ones on the next vouchers.
Thank you, Steve. Yep. Any comments from the maker or supporter?
No.
Nope. Any other discussion from the council? Any discussion from the council? Roll call.
Councilman Godbout,
Yes.
Councilwoman Green,
Yes.
Councilman Hersberg,
Yes.
Councilman Londo,
Yes.
Councilman McDermott,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rakowski,
Yes.
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, we now move into comments, input from the public. Everyone speaking before the council should do so in a civil manner. Speakers shall refrain from abusive or profane remarks, vulgar language, disruptive outbursts, threats, racial slurs, or any other conduct that interferes with the orderly conduct of the business meeting. Personal attacks on council members, the administration, city staff, other speakers, or members of the public will not be tolerated. The clock will start upon the first words of the speaker and will not stop while the speaker is recognized from the floor. It is the speaker's option to ask questions at this time, and the speaker question may choose to respond during the speaker's allotment of time. The clock will not be stopped once it has started. Are there any questions from the public or input? I have a hand raised from a Mr. Len Fisher. Len?
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank the council for approving our event. And I wanted to give a little bit of a background to the people that are listening here tonight concerning the event. Because of the, I'm from Inspire Theater, for those who don't know. And because of the pandemic shut down all theaters across the country, our theater turned to the outdoors to take advantage of the summer weather in order to continue to bring quality entertainment to Westland. In July, we hosted a karaoke style event in the parking lot for 100 people, socially distant, of course. Because of their desire to provide more opportunity to enjoy this caliber of entertainment, Inspire has reached out to the city of Westland to extend its ability to produce music in the park. Most events planned this summer in Westland were canceled, leaving a dearth of summer opportunities. Inspire would like to help fill the void left by these cancellations. Inspire is hosting Music in the Park, an evening of well-loved songs and comedy brought to you by the area's finest performers. The event is to be held on Sunday, August 23rd from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. under the Lions Pavilion in Central City Park on Ford Road. Bring a lawn chair and join us at the pavilion. Concessions will be provided for purchase. And to answer Councilman McDermott's question, our MCs will be stating from the platform regularly, at least every 15 minutes, to please wear your mask and socially distance. We'll actually be threatening the audience, saying if you don't, they could shut us down. So please abide by that if you want us to continue with the show. So I invite all of you to come out. It'll be a nice evening of fun and entertainment. Thank you.
Thank you, Len. All right, next we have Mr. Asper.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, all right, I'll go through these. I have 6 things, so I would like if no one would answer my questions until the very end, since I'm on time. My first thing I mentioned last meeting was regarding the city of Westland violating the governor's executive order by building a property on Emerson, which is in the Norwin district. I asked this to the deputy mayor. He did not. Well, he answered, but he circumnavigated around, and he did not answer the question. There was a clothing donation charity during this time as well against the governor's order. My thing is, if the city is going to defy the governor's order, and I emailed all of you this, make a resolution to open up the city of Westland. Businesses are hurting. You've seen the restaurants going out of business. The gyms are hurting a lot. I've spoken to many of the owners. My third thing was the marijuana locations. There's been multiple locations that have been purchased last year. This was before applications were even being accepted. And these are amounts between 750, 1 million on up. No business person makes this kind of purchase in the hopes of getting a license. That doesn't happen. There's been word that people have been promised these licenses. And if we go back to this vote as their baby on that, but that's a concern. That there's something that's, for example, the JS in late December for connection at Newburgh and Ford Road. My fourth thing was I wanted, and I'll go through the avenues to do this. I wanted to bring to all your attention, especially since the schools, they don't know what they're going to do yet. And then also for GED, people going for wanted to have the GEDs, and I was wanting to obviously see if I could use the city hall for this use. It would be free. So it'd be me donating my time. I'll go through the avenues to do whatever I can to do this. Negative feedback on that. The police chief, deputy, Deputy Police Chief Brian Miller, since the chief's not here. I was curious, what is the policy if a prisoner goes to a hospital and must an officer stay with him?
Mr. Asper, your 3 minutes are up. Thank you. Next, first of all, counsel, to my colleagues, am I coming through clear or am I coming through choppy? That was a little rough. Am I coming through clear right now?
You're clear.
Okay.
Caller was coming through choppy.
Okay. All right. So next we have Mr. Pruitt.
Hello. Thank you again. This is Pastor Pruitt here. I just wanted to get on first to say thank you all to each and every one of the council members. This is encouraging that all 7 council members voted to push the resolution to the next week, next council meeting. I want to really urge each council member to look at the situation that many people in the community face on a day-to-day basis and find real solutions. So I don't have a long comment. I just want to thank you for the vote that you all did and the encouragement that it gave. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Miss Denise Sedman. Miss Sedman?
Hi.
Hello.
I wanted to comment and give some positive feedback about the interview that Mayor Wild did with the police chief. There was a special program that was on the website, I think the police website on Facebook. And I really learned a lot by listening to that. And I would like to see those programs like maybe how we do economic development or whatever. It was very enlightening and I appreciated it. And one surprising fact that I did not realize is that when the chief said he applied for a police officer job, I think he said something like 400 people had applied for the job, whereas they just had a recent posting and only 9 people applied for the job. So I thought that was pretty astounding to hear that figure going from like 400. And I know it's competitive because I know some people in law enforcement and I know how competitive it is to go down to 9 people. So I just wanted to say I appreciate the Mayor. I appreciate the program. I did watch the whole hour and it was very informative.
All set, Denise?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, next, Blake Perry. Blake?
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you now, Blake. Go right ahead.
Okay, I got a phone call from Steve. We had coffee and we were talking about policy things and it led to discussion of the Disability Concern Board. So I submitted a letter to you all, and I believe that Steve sent the recommendation letter. There are 2 seats. There are, a lot of things in our city that could be done or could be balanced or bringing more information in. For example, on the disability resource page, it says that if there's an ADA violation, to call the police. Technically that information could go towards more. It could go to another area because we have a lot of ADA issues, and I don't think that the police would like to be dispatched to them, although people haven't done that, and I would never do that. But I just think that we really have a lot of resources and things that I could bring to the table. I've led the SAM Public Policy platform as interim chair. I led the platform with Detroit, Wayne County Health. I'm in and out of Lansing. I'm in and out of DC. I know a lot of resources. I'm very strong in policy. And I want to thank my friend Stephen for supporting me. That's all, Council. Thanks.
Thank you, Blake. The next we have Ms. Stewart.
All right. Good evening again. This is Gina Stewart, president of the Western Wayne County NAACP. I just have 4 quick things, and I'm sure I can get them done in 3 minutes. First, I wanted to thank you guys for your vote that you just made. I think it's a step in the right direction. I wanted to know how will we know when the meeting will be held. I also watched the interview with the police chief and the mayor, and I learned a lot as well. I did have one question about the recruitment team and how can we get involved with either being a member of the recruitment team or at least just attending the meeting so that we can offer some ideas on different ways to recruit police officers for the city of Westland. The other thing I wanted to do is remind everybody about the election coming up. We always have to talk about election. It's very, very important that we use our vote and our voice in August, which is in a couple weeks. And the last thing isn't a budgeting issue for me. I know that you guys just passed the CARES, using the CARES Act money to pay the police and fire officers, but it seems like you're spending the money before you awarded the grant. I'm assuming that you're very confident that you're going to get the grant, but I know when I'm paying my bills, I normally don't pay them unless I have the money. So unless you guys have some strategic way that you know that you're going to get that money, is it a rush or I don't know. I was just wondering, is it a rush or should you wait until you actually have the money to pay it? Or, I mean, you guys are in city government, maybe you know something I don't know. So that was it for me.
Thank you, Gina.
Okay.
All right, next we have, says Steve, so you're up, Steve. Steve, are you there? I show you it's muted. Maybe unmute your phone or unmute your app there. Steve, I'm gonna have to pass you up here, Steve. All right, we will move on to Miss Melody Hines.
Hi, good evening. I'd like
Good
to
evening.
thank you. Yes, I'd like to thank you all for passing that resolution to, table it to have community discussion. I'm really glad that you guys are doing this. I'm the vice chair of the
Hey, Melody, unless any of my colleagues tell me I'm off my rocker, I don't think we can hear you at all,
I
Melody.
definitely would like to be a part of this change in Westland. So if you guys need anything with discussions or, I definitely would like to be a part of that with you all. That's it. Oh, can you hear me?
Well, now we can hear you. Wait, hold on. So I think, Melody, you broke up. Is it just me or my colleagues? Did she break up the whole time? Yes. Okay. Melody, you broke up the whole time. So if you can hear us, I think your connection's bad. And just so you know, I'll say anecdotally, when the power is out, everybody's using their cell phone because their home internet isn't working half the time, and it really congests the network. So if you want, do email us. We'd love to hear what you said. We just didn't hear it. So if you want to email us what you said, we'd love to hear it. Yeah, your connection was pretty bad there. So, but thanks for showing up and talking to us, and please do email us what you said so we know what you said. It's important. With that, we'll move on to a number ending in 017.
Yes, good evening again. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Richard Graham from Westland and also with Move Westland Forward. Good evening again. I would first like to start off by congratulating one of our elected and dedicated council people, Councilwoman Tasha Green. As many of you know, the Councilwoman has been involved with the Wayne County Sheriff's and specifically the Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT. Many of us have admired her dedication to help protect not only Westland residents, but all of Wayne County. She recently graduated from the Schoolcraft Community College Police Academy. She will now transition to the Uniform Division and further become involved to serve within law enforcement. It seems like today this has become a thankless job, but I specifically admire her commitment. Hopefully we get back into the council chambers, the administration can formally recognize the councilwoman in regards to her achievement and dedication within the Wayne County Sheriff's to help protect the residents. Now on to the Board of Ethics discussion from 2 weeks ago. It was very surprising to hear every member of council voice support for the Ethics Board that Mayor Wild disbanded over 12 years ago now and will not fill. Council members Hart, Landau, Godbout, Ratowski, Team Wild members, have voiced little to any support of this in the past. What was even more shocking is not seeing a study session on this over the last 2 weeks. It seems like failed leadership from Council President Hart and Council President Pro Tem Landau for not taking us seriously and to have a study session by now. Frankly, it should have been scheduled last week. Why the delay? Why the inability to lead in scheduling a rather simple study session? Council President Hart, you made a statement last meeting that you talked with someone, I assume within the administration, that no one has applied to the Board of Ethics. Who did you speak with, Council President Hart? You know at least one resident has applied based on a previous council meeting and that you attended, and also an email that you received. Did you question the validity of the statement you were told? So who was it, Council President Hart? Who told you that outlandish statement? That's it for my comments. Council President Hart, if you'd like to answer.
I'll answer during my comments.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right. Next, we have number ending in 139. I believe, yeah, 139.
Hello, can you hear me?
Are you there? Number ending in. Yes, I can hear you. Well, if you're well, you're muted now. Are you still there?
Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you again. Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, so we're good. Okay. My name is Stephen Smith, and I would like to publicly support Blake Perry in his quest to become a member of the Committee on Disability Concerns. I believe he will bring additional knowledge about disabilities to the committee. Also, Blake acknowledges, understands, and embraces the widespread nature of disabilities. He understands disability touches every demographic category, gender, age, race, sexual orientation, etc. Blake is currently working in the disability field and a board member of the Autism Support Service Center. And also, Blake would bring diversity to the committee that we don't currently have. And just a little background about myself. I'm currently a member on the Committee of Disabilities. I've been appointed multiple times by William R. Lyle. I'm a case manager for students with disabilities at Eastern Michigan University. I have been there for 7+ years. I have been an employment specialist through Michigan Rehabilitation Services, helping clients find employment opportunities. So I have vast knowledge in the disability field. I'm a person with a disability, and I believe Blake is an excellent candidate for the committee. So I would like to see him appointed. That's all I have. And I just have one. Can everyone confirm that they received Blake's letter that he emailed and my letter of support for him? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I see no other hands raised from the residents. Is there any other questions or input from the public? All right, we'll close comments from the public and move on to comments from the administration. Mayor.
Evening, everybody. So just made a few notes here, so I'm going to kind of jump all over the place. First of all, City Council, thank you for taking a few moments at the beginning of your meeting tonight to ask for a moment of silence on behalf of Congressman Lewis. I think it was the right thing to do. He's been referred to as the conscience of the U.S. Congress, and he's definitely going to be missed, especially at a time where we could probably use his expertise now more than ever. Council, thank you for approving the Inspire Theater request to perform music in the park. And as Kyle said, we'll definitely work with them to make sure that we have social distancing in place and try to make it as safe as possible for both people watching the event, but also for people taking part. So I appreciate them coming outside of their building and trying to utilize open space to try to continue to bring culture to our community. Next up was two things that Miss Gina Stewart said from the Western Wayne NAACP. I think her offer to be involved with the recruitment team. I think tonight Deputy Chief Brian Miller is here. He heads up that team, and I think that you could probably expect to have a conversation with him, and certainly you would be very welcome in that efforts. And there's a lot of room for people to help us in that area. Also, your question about the CARES Act, as was laid out in the City Council's packet tonight, is that there is some risk involved with this grant. It is a first come, first serve reimbursement grant. You cannot qualify if you do not pay the money. We feel confident because we're going to be one of the first communities that apply, but at the end of the day, ultimately, even if we didn't get that grant, the administration, I think with the council's unanimous support tonight, shows that as a community, we're ready to thank our frontline public safety officials in this effort, even if we don't get reimbursed. So I think it was the right thing to do. Ms. Sedman had mentioned an interview that I did with the police chief. It's currently playing on WLND. It's also available on the city's YouTube channel, and I believe that the police department's community policing Facebook page. And I do encourage you to watch it. It was a very in-depth conversation with the chief. We went one-on-one. We tackled a lot of the current issues that we're currently talking about. And I think that you'll see that the police chief was very open and honest. And I think that you can also see his commitment in this interview. So I would encourage you to watch it. And he also talked about some upcoming things that he's about to announce here in the very near future. So definitely take a look at that. Council, I was not at the last council meeting, but I did want to talk about two things. First of all is that there was a question about the ethics board, and it's something that I've gone on public record saying that it's something I'm committed to working with you to fill that board. One thing that was said tonight, which is not factual, is that Mayor Wild disbanded this board, which is entirely false. This board is banded under a previous administration before I took over the office as mayor. But regardless, I'm committed to working with City Council on trying to find candidates for this board, and it's something that I look forward to working with you in the near future to fill that. And then the last thing, Council, was, and I don't want to try to bring up a conversation that definitely Council spent a lot of time on at the last meeting, but it's something that I think that it's important that we think about in our positions. And there was a lot of talk at the last council meeting about one of the employees of the city of Westland being appointed to a different position, which I guess theoretically can say that it was a promotion. Here's where we just have to be careful with the things that we say, is that at the end of the day, the city of Westland is an organization. It's an ongoing entity that started before any of us took office, and all of us in elected positions will one day not be in these positions anymore, and other people will. But the city is an organization. It's not any different than, if the employees that work here, this is their career. These are the careers that they've chosen, and it's no different than if we were Ford Motor Company, General Motors, Delta Dental, or anybody else. It's that as an organization, we struggle to find talent, and when we do have talent, it's important in any successful organization. And there's members on the city council that are business people. You know this, that you have to, as an organization, create career advancement opportunities for the people that work for you. Otherwise, you really have a hard time hiring people, and what you really have a hard time is keeping good people. And right now, you know, we've made some changes at this level to help us financially retain police officers recently. But with that said, is that we have to be careful of the message that we send to our employees, because this is their career. They work here in different roles day in and day out. Here in City Hall, some of the comments that were said at the council meeting were really taken offense by a lot of people that work in the city, that you know, a lot of the people that work in the city live in the city, and they take a lot of pride in their jobs, and we are very demanding of them, and we require that they have training, and that they're professional, and you know, that they are trained in customer service and how to answer phones, and that I'm just talking about clerical people, but in every position in the city, police, fire, DPS, these are career individuals. They're not elected positions. They're career people that we just have to be careful as an organization, you know, how we treat our people, because at the end of the day, I would say that any successful organization will probably say they're only as good as the people that work there. And so I know that, like I said, I'm not trying to reignite a conversation, because plenty was said, but at the end of the day, I think it's important that our city employees, they know that you know, politics aside, is that if they do a good job, if they increase their skill set, that they in fact have opportunities to either apply for upward mobility positions within their unions, or even for appointed positions. And the one thing is that when our employees step out of their union contracts and they step into at-will employee status, you know, they take a lot of risk with that. So with that said, I just thought that we just need to kind of be careful with our employees, because they are special. We are very fortunate. I mean, tonight we're taking care of our frontline people through some CARES Act money, but during this recent COVID crisis, there were a lot of unsung heroes that worked behind the scenes to keep this city working. I know that police and fire were on the front lines, but there are a lot of people that still worked either from home here at the office on partial furlough, but we didn't shut the city down entirely. A lot of people worked, and those people are important. They're essential, and we just have to recognize them and try to create a productive work environment that, first of all, that they can succeed in, because if they succeed, we all look good, the city looks good. So with that, council, I appreciate your time tonight, and I look forward to working with you drafting the resolution that was talked about tonight, and have a great evening. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Anything from the city attorney today?
Thank you, Council President. I just thought I would update council and the citizens, as I've done before, regarding a recent governor's executive order, in particular, Executive Order 2020-154. This executive order extends or allows for remote public meetings until the end of the COVID-19 state of emergency, plus 28 days. So whereas before, this is the executive order that allows for these virtual meetings to satisfy the Open Meetings Act, rather than extended 30 days at a time, which the governor had been doing. It is now extended through the entire COVID-19 state of emergency, plus 28 days. We don't know when she'll say the state of emergency ends, but we'll have enough time to make those transitions based on Executive Order 2020-154. Thank you.
Thank you. We begin council comments tonight with Councilman Hertzberg.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to start by thanking the IT director for getting me set up here in the council. I'm actually in the council chambers. Power's out at home. Like many of you, were waiting for it this evening to come back on. So thanks, Craig, for last minute before our study session getting me hooked up here. And it may have to happen again at the next meeting as well. I am looking forward to eventually meeting in person when we're able to. It was brought up about, we talked about study sessions a couple of times here. So between the last meeting and this meeting, 3 council members, we've asked for a study session on ethics and also on nursing home and care facility standards. I'm at this point, I'm glad that the council president hasn't scheduled it yet. We're still kind of setting some goals for what we want to see at these study sessions. When it comes to care facilities and nursing homes, there are a lot of issues. And I talked to some of the council members about it. I want to see us really start to poke at some of these issues. Whether it's these adult daycares, it's these long-term care facilities, there's nursing homes. We've got to do something. If any of you have paid attention to the listening tour by Dana Nessel, there's a lot of stuff being said and a lot of stuff coming out. I've talked to people, you know, it sounds like some of these facilities are giving people medications without a prescription. That's very concerning. My initial goal for this was that we do have an issue where people are calling 911 at these facilities for some of the patients that may not need an ambulance. And that's only because they don't have a doctor or a certified nurse on staff. They have different people. They wear scrubs, but they may not be RNs. So, you know, I do just want to sit down and start to have this conversation at council. I'd like to find a speaker to come who has a little more info on this. But I am confident that the council president is going to schedule that in a timely manner, and we're going to get that moving forward. So that's about it. Last council meeting, my comments got jumbled. I tried to reach out to a couple people who I tried to answer their questions. So I hope to have some significant updates in the next couple of weeks, next council meeting. Looking forward to the study session on the ethics, the care facilities, and the resolution. So if any of the council members want to reach out to me and give me a call based, you know, for any of those issues, I'm happy to talk about it, as well as Attorney Fastone or Mayor Wild. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Next, we have Councilwoman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to start tonight by thanking the members of our community, concerned citizens, community partners for calling in tonight, taking time away from yourself and your families to speak about the importance for the city to make the right and the just decision as it relates to the resolution that I submitted declaring racism a public health crisis. I'd also like to state that the resolution is actually the first step in declaring the official opinion of the government body, being City Council. And once we get beyond that point, I think it's important to keep moving forward with tangible procedural and policy changes and results that impact our community. And I believe the next step would be to look at our ordinances and make sure that they are consistent with the resolution that we will come together to pass. So once again, thank you, City Council and Mayor Wild for what will be, I'm sure, a very fruitful meeting upcoming. I also want to inform the residents of the 28th precinct of Westland, which is the precinct that I live in. If you did not receive the notice via mail, or you may have just forgotten, with the upcoming election that is occurring in the next couple weeks, first week of August, our polling location has changed. We have voted historically at Burning Bush Church. Our polling location has changed to Elliott Elementary School, located at 30800 Bennington Street here in Westland. So if you will not be voting absentee and you plan on going to the polls, you'll need to go to Elliott Elementary on election day. Due to the COVID pandemic, the church has decided to take the safest steps this time around and keep the church closed. So that's just a friendly reminder. Also wanted to speak to Blake's application, Blake Perry, who was applying for the Disability Concern Board. I want to thank Blake for stepping up and wanting to make a change here in our city in Westland. I know firsthand of your commitment to disability rights, education, and fair treatment for those who are disabled. Blake not only advocates and works on the state level, he also does a lot on the county level for the disabled community. And so with us having that letter, received that letter from both Blake and Steve Smith, who spoke tonight, I would ask the city council and the mayor to take a look at that and welcome someone who's definitely committed to the city of Westland and committed to making a positive change for our disabled community. And so, Blake, I hope to be able to welcome you on the board in the near future. I'd also like to thank Richard Graham for the recognition that you gave me tonight and the appreciation. And I just wanted to say thank you for taking a moment to do that. It is very much appreciated, so thank you. The mayor made a comment tonight about the discussion that occurred at the last city council meeting. As a FYI, all of our city council meetings live stream on the WLND Westland City Council YouTube page. I would encourage anyone with questions regarding what he's speaking about to go to the YouTube page, again, WLND City of Westland, and pull up the July 6th City Council meeting and take a look at that meeting. Listen to the discussion that occurred regarding this position, regarding the woman's qualifications, who was given a senior executive position in our city, the pay scale that she will receive, and the position that the city of Westland found itself in due to the actions, or some might say lack of actions, that were taken regarding that position. So I would encourage you to pull up the July 6th meeting and take a look at the discussion. With that being the case, I would also express that, as the mayor stated, that the city of Westland is an organization. That does not mean that we are exempt from being held accountable or liable for discriminatory practices, potentially discriminatory or restrictive hiring practices. It does not exempt our organization from the expectation of ethical activity, decisions, and transparency. And so without going into too much detail, please pull up the July 6th meeting. If you, if there's anyone in corporate America or just a person who shows up to work, if you believe it is fair for positions to be given to certain individuals, while those who have worked for the city are not notified, the general public is not notified, we make no attempts to hire the most qualified candidate. And the reality of what occurred with that particular position means that a woman with minimal qualifications, if anything happens to the clerk in our city that leaves him unable to perform his job, our entire electoral system may be placed in the hands of someone with minimal experience. And you can again hear all the details on the July 6th video. But with me being a business owner and being very pro employee and pro treating employees well and paying them well, I also believe that it should be done fairly. I believe that people should not be given positions without others who may have worked for the city just as long or even longer, even having the opportunity to apply. So those who may have been offended by the comments made, I guarantee you it's not the thousands of people who are in the job sector looking for employment currently. I guarantee you it's not the 77 city employees that we had on furlough that were on unemployment for months. I guarantee you it's not the people who may have had more experience and were not given the opportunity. So again, as it relates to our actions as an organization, we must ensure that we are always consistent, fair, and that we treat the authority that we have in many of these positions, especially employment, that we do so in a manner that promotes a fair and equitable outcome for everyone involved. And that's one of the things that the resolution that was sponsored by our state senator and others. That's one of the things that the resolution also speaks to. So I'll move on from there. Finally, I want to thank the council president for the moment of silence for Congressman John Lewis at the beginning of the meeting. When I learned of Congressman Lewis's passing, I was extremely distraught, as I'm sure many people were. Congressman Lewis, not only was he known as the conscience of the Congress, Congressman Lewis, when he started out with Martin Luther King in this country, he was not looked upon as a hero. Actually, he, Martin Luther King, and many others who are viewed as heroes today were labeled as terrorists at that time for standing up for the rights of many people in this country, particularly African Americans. There was one instance too where John Lewis had his skull fractured by the police department at that time for peacefully marching to the Selma Bridge for voting rights. So, you know, the legacy that he left is one that I'm very grateful for, being elected as the first Black woman in Westland, because people like John Lewis and so many others that came before me, I sit here today only because of them. And I stand up for my community because they gave me the opportunity to do so. And so I recognize not only John Lewis, but everybody who, we're losing a lot of great heroes. And I'm putting out a call to the officials, the elected officials in the community. There are people who are depending on us to stand up and do the right thing. Our heroes are leaving. So the heroes of today you're looking at it. John Lewis never turned his back on the community. He was not for sale. He never backpedaled on what he said. And those are the type of people that the community wants to represent them. They don't need us to get in office and try to get to Lansing or Washington by selling them out or lying to them or getting in office and voting against them. So I thank God for the example that we all received from John Lewis and so many others. And I'm calling to the community, if you want change here in our city in Westland, get involved in our political process, vote, you know, vote. And educate yourself. We have many leaders here in our community, and we would love for you to join us on council or in any position to where you will be a person of integrity and not go along to get along or sell out those who are less than, but who are depending on you to keep you the words that you told them when you knocked on their doors. So I thank God for John Lewis today. I'm very proud and thankful of the legacy that so many within the African American community left, fought, died, and were killed for. So with that, I say, keep up the fight. And in the words of John Lewis, if you see something that is not just and not fair, it is required that you speak up, and let's go out there and get in some good trouble.
We now move on to Councilman Godbout.
Thanks. First, I'd like to, Mayor, if you could extend my thanks and appreciation to our DPS crews for the job that they did during this storm cleanup the past days. I saw the crews out there working very hard, and I've seen the results on the Click and Fix app, where residents have been very appreciative of the timeliness and the effort that our DPS crews have made during this last storm. In regards to Zoom and distorted audio, just a little side note that if you have other applications running while you're running Zoom, it will force that audio distortion or screen freeze a lot of times, not necessarily just the bandwidth of your internet connection. So if you want to avoid some of the clipping that occurs, make sure you close down a bunch of the other apps that are running on your system before you enter a Zoom meeting. In regards to the appointment that in the clerk's office, and it's no secret, the clerk and I haven't agreed on things a lot over the course of time, but it is his appointment to make. Prior to, and just from a perspective, prior to the appointment of Sue, the other deputy clerks within the city had been promoted from within the city. They had worked either in the clerk's office or in another area within the city, and they were appointed by the then sitting clerk to come in and take over the deputy position. So it is far from a precedent-setting move. Actually, the precedent-setting move was going outside when we had the presidential election and bringing in someone from the outside to assist our current clerk during a presidential election. So it's the clerk's appointment to make. The individual that he's chosen at this point in time is a hard worker, great individual, and I have every confidence that she'll do a great job in that role. So that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Councilman. We move on to Councilwoman Rakowski.
You would think by now I'd have the order down, but I think you change it up every once in a while. So first I want to express how excited I am that Hubbard Park is getting playground equipment. It's been a long time coming. I know that those residents and children are just going to be so happy that they finally have a playground. And it's really exciting that it's going to be expanded into a more accessible play set, as I like to call it. So I hope you, if you live in that part of town, that you're excited, because I'm looking forward to it. I'm really proud of the Inspire Theater and them taking on the challenge of giving us some entertainment and some outlets during this pandemic time, and just using their creativity. I mean, could you expect anything less of the theater troupe there? And I'm really looking forward to seeing the talents, not only of their performers, but maybe some of the people in the community will join in. With the resolution, I'm proud of Councilwoman Green for bringing it to the table. I'm proud of us as a collective body to recognize that government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. And we have an opportunity to make sure that people means all of the people. And it's very important that our residents are heard, that their experiences are shared and heard and understood. And I think it's a great step towards meaningful legislation, because we can put anything we want on a piece of paper. We really can. A resolution is the first step, but it doesn't hold teeth. So I want to have a document that we can all be proud of, and we can be proud of as a community. I wasn't really going to say a whole heck of a lot more, but we got started down a path, and couldn't help but think about what would happen if somebody would have judged me for who I was in 2014 and 15. Now, yes, I still owned a business. I was able to work from home, but I was a mom. And in America, somehow staying home and taking care of your children has become a sacrifice instead of this really honorable thing that we get to do. And nobody judges men like they judge women. Nobody talks about the stay-at-home daddies and him going back into the workforce. And I'm really upset that we got down this whole path where we questioned who somebody was because of their resume when they started in the city. It feels discriminatory. It feels like we can't fathom that somebody has a skill set or that they can improve on their skill set. And how dare anybody look for upward mobility? Now, Richard had the opportunity, Clerk LeBlanc had the opportunity to make an appointment. He exercised that right. And, you know, Richard has done a very good job as our clerk. And I have every confidence in him that he would pick the right candidate. And, you know, if we're going to talk about finding the right way, it has to be an all-encompassing. And you know, to be a woman and finally have a seat at the table and then have to defend a woman for wanting to be a mom and then going into the workforce, I mean, that's exactly why I have a seat at the table. So, you know, we have a AFSCME 1602 employee who's going to give up a very comfortable, in some respects, safe union position to be an at-will employee. And, you know, that's pretty brave, especially in today's society. That's really brave. And so I commend her. I welcome her. I look forward to seeing what she brings to the position. And, you know, I want us to be considerate of people who live in our city and work for our city and their abilities. And, you know, let's do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman McDermott.
Well, good evening. First off, I would like to start out by thanking Council President Hart on 2 accords tonight. One, for allowing us to have the moment of silence for Congressman John Lewis. As Councilwoman Green said, Congressman Lewis got in what you call good trouble. He was someone who risked his life just for the basic right of voting, the basic right of eating at a lunch counter with his contemporaries, for riding on a seat in a bus. As Councilwoman Green said, he had his skull cracked open because he tried to get people to the polls and give them the right that they have as Americans and as human beings to vote. So thank you, Council President Hart, for allowing us to have that moment of silence. And also thank you for the control and rules adopted in this meeting. I feel like we were on track. I feel that people followed their 3 minutes and we did a great job with that this evening. So I want to thank you. I know it's a thankless job being Council President sometimes. So thank you for keeping us on track. Really appreciate that. A question through, I guess, to the administration on this. We've talked about getting stickers for the recycling bins for a recycling program, whether that's going to be provided by us or from Republic directly. Do we have an update with where we're at in terms of getting recycling stickers? I've had a couple of residents reach out on that. And then also on the issue of recycling, I wanted to thank Ramsey and his team. I had a resident reach out to me in regards to damage that was done to her blue bin, and they were able to go out the very next day after I reached out to Ramsey again and get the blue bin replaced. So thank you to Ramsey and your team for the quick replacement on that. I would like to echo Councilman Godbout's sentiments with the DPS crew. There were a lot of limbs and branches down in my neighborhood. We were also one of the ones without power, and DPS was out there at the crack of dawn this morning, working in the Avondale and Wildwood area to get things cleaned up as well. So thank you to our DPS crew for the quick and speedy response on that. I want to remind people that we have a primary election coming up. So you still have the opportunity until midnight tonight to go register online to vote if you are not registered. As a reminder, you can register up to Election Day at your clerk's office here in the city of Westland to vote. But if you're looking to register online at the Michigan Secretary of State's website, tonight is the deadline for online voter registration. And speaking of the election, our city clerk, Clerk LeBlanc, is still looking for election workers. If you're interested in participating in that process here, we certainly need people to work on Election Day in the primary. You can go to thecityofwestland.com and from there go to the city clerk's page to find the application to apply to work at the election. There's a small stipend you will be paid for your services that day on Election Day as well. And then I would like to congratulate Councilwoman Green on her graduation from Schoolcraft College's Police Academy program. So congratulations. I'm sure that's something that you've worked quite a long time towards. And I know as a graduate myself, it's always nice to be done with something like that. So congratulations on that. The final thing I wanted to talk about tonight was the resolution. So I'm glad to see, I guess, that we've postponed it. We had a number of people in the community that reached out today, that reached out here at the council meeting that wanted to see us do that because they wanted more involvement and more input. And so I'm glad to see that we were able to do that. Specifically here in the city of Westland, we have a community, the Southeast Westland Homeowners Association, that I would really like to see, a wealth of members get involved from that community because it is such a population that is so heavily African-American down there. So if we can get, more involvement from that community and on our part, reach out to make sure that they're well represented in any future meetings or study sessions that we have in regards to this resolution, I think that's going to be critically important. Beyond the resolution itself, I want, members to know that, myself and all of my colleagues, we are committed to making, changes and reforms to things that we're doing here to not have business as usual in the city of Westland. I know for myself, I want to see things like a citizen civilian review board in our police department. I want to see a review of training policies and procedures that our officers go through in relations to racial sensitivity, implicit bias, disabilities awareness. I would like to see the city of Westland add social workers to our payroll if our budget allows into the future, potentially adding to social workers. So I just want to say that the work that we're doing with this resolution doesn't stop here. It isn't something where we're going to build Rome in one day and get everything all done in one resolution. This is something that we're going to parse out and that I know myself and my colleagues are committed to making changes and reforms. I've had conversations with multiple colleagues over this, with our council president. I know Councilman Mondo and myself have reached out directly to the chief to have continued conversations on this. So I know that this is something that far beyond the resolution, that we as council members, we as a body, we are personally committed to making these changes. And as Councilwoman Rakowski said, not just have a piece of paper that we can wave around and say, hey, look, we put something on a paper, but to have something with some real teeth that will make a difference in people's lives, specifically in communities of color here in the city of Westland. So I look forward to working with all of my colleagues and the administration and members of the community, not only on this resolution, but on changes that we can adopt well into the future. And with that, I would remind everybody, if you have not, again, gotten registered to vote or requested your absentee ballot, please do so. Democracy is not a spectator sport, is a participatory activity, and please get involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Move on to Council President Pro Tem Michael Londo.
Thank you, Council President Hart. Thank you as well for taking a moment of silence at the beginning of our meeting for, the passing of, civil rights icon and Congressman John Lewis. I really lost an icon who changed history at great personal sacrifice, as you all know. Some items on the agenda tonight. I want to start by congratulating Matthew Taransky and thank him for stepping up to serve on the very important Economic Development Board. Basically is what it is. It's our tax increment finance authority board. For those that don't know, Matt is the owner of Olympic Coney Island here in Westland on Wayne Road. They have great food over there. I go in there often. So thank you, Matt, for stepping up. I appreciate it. Also, we had a lot of items on the agenda tonight. I was mentioned about Hubbard Park. I live near Hubbard Park. I'm very excited to see those improvements. As Councilwoman Rakowski mentioned, knocking doors over there. That was one of the biggest things that folks mentioned. One of our DPS employees actually lives over there as well. And, he was like, I can't wait to go over there and do some work other than cutting grass and get some, get this playground equipment back over there. So very much looking forward to seeing the improvements over there. In regards to hazard pay, I already kind of talked about it earlier during that, when that item came up. I want to thank the administration and for all my colleagues for passing that 7-0. I've already received a few texts from some of the union employees that are thanking us for that. So look forward to seeing those from those guys. And then it was mentioned Police Chief Ted Druzik and Mayor Wild did do an hour-long or so special on WLND talking about some of the things the police department's doing, some of the things the city of Westland's doing, to work on transparency, to reach out to the African-American community, to work together. I thought it was very informative. I caught most of it. I got to go back on YouTube and watch the rest of it, but it's very, very informative. And as Councilman McDermott mentioned, the chief has reached out. I encourage every one of my colleagues to follow up with Chief. I know we can't meet as a group unless we do a public meeting, but we can do, groups of 2 or 3 at a time. So I look forward to hearing from the chief and hearing some of his plans moving forward, as he's going to be here for at least another 5 years. I know it was mentioned about the DPS crews. I also want to echo my thoughts or echo my thank you to them as well. Those hardworking men and women have been out there working really hard, getting this stuff done. And obviously DTE doesn't work for us, but they're out there working hard to try to resolve the outages. And you know, hopefully everyone gets back up and running by today. And thankfully it hasn't been super hot in the last day or two as I'm sitting in my central air. I do want to report, I talked with the DPS director this morning. If you have branches or tree limbs that fell on your private property, please bring them to the curb and our crews will chip them and or remove them for you. Our public safety departments are also making sure that intersections with no power have stop signs. But if you approach a non-working traffic signal, please treat it as a four-way stop. And please be patient when driving until power has been restored. And then also really important, please check on family, friends, and neighbors to make sure they are safe and informed of this changing situation. The last two things, Council President, is just in regards to, it was mentioned, let me pull it up here. It was mentioned that if the city clerk, something were to happen with the city clerk, whether he, let's just say he vacated his office. In our council policies and procedures, which were passed, our recent one in Article 2, vacate elected positions. Section 1A, all vacancies in elective positions shall be filled by majority vote of seated members of council no later than the second regular city council meeting following the effective date of the vacancy, provided a majority number of affirmative votes are cast. There's a lot more into it. If anybody wants to look at it, it's in our council policies and procedures. Page 4, it's under Article 2 in the council policies and procedures. And the last two things, just want to state publicly to our council president, I failed you at the last meeting. It kind of got off the rails and I wasn't there for you to back you up on some of it. I thought you ran a very, very good meeting today and I hope to see that moving forward and think that everybody, as long as everybody follows the policies and procedures that we have enacted, we should be fine. But thank you, Council President Hart, for everything you do. Like Councilman McDermott said, it's a very tough position and I'm sitting here taking notes and, you know, maybe I need to step up a little bit more in point of order when something's out of line. So thank you for that. And lastly, happy birthday to my girlfriend, Ruthie. Thank you.
Smart man, smart man. First of all, I'd like to thank Councilman Londell for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. And I'd like to, thank Matt Taransky for accepting and being appointed to our boards and commissions for the EDC, Brownfield Redevelopment, and TIFA. Your talents are sought after and appreciated, and we thank you for stepping up. I'll be very brief today. First thing is, it was questioned earlier about the Ethics Committee, and I misspoke at the earlier council meeting. I meant to say that nothing had been put before council yet. So not that no one has applied. So I think that was a little mean-spirited and attacked me pretty meanly, and I didn't think it was necessary, but I'll go ahead and make sure that I restate that. I meant to say that no one has put it before council. So that's what I meant. So to clear that up. The other thing is, to my colleagues, we do have 3 study sessions on the books, okay, that we need to schedule. One is the Ethics Committee, one is the nursing home issue, and the other one is this resolution. Now, I'll be frank with you, with this resolution, it's scheduled for the next council meeting, which is August 3rd. I'm concerned that might be a very tight time frame if we're going to be as inclusive as we want to be and gain a lot of input from the community and be able to put something together. We're going to drive towards that date. It might be very aggressive. So I just want us to understand that. And I don't want to leave anything off the table just to make a date. I think we're all interested in having as much quality, as much input onto this thing, because it means so much to all the council members and they voice that. So we'll try and drive for the August 3rd. I'm going to try and figure out dates tomorrow to get this done. And this is going to take my priority of the 3 council meetings, of course, because this one has the shortest time frame. And I think we need to get together and work together quickly and get the conversation starting. And with that, I will end by recognizing C.T. Vivian. He was an American minister, author, close friend, and lieutenant of Martin Luther King Jr. during the Civil Rights Movement. Vivian resided in Atlanta, Georgia, and founded the C.T. Vivian Leadership Institute. Senator Barack Obama, at the time, speaking at Selma's Brown Chapel on the March 2007 anniversary of the 1965 Selma to Montgomery marches, which we spoke about earlier, recognized Vivian in his opening remarks in the words of Martin Luther King Jr. as the greatest preacher to ever live. Both of these gentlemen have had a profound impact on us, and they echo to me, of course. Martin Luther King Jr. is pretty much one of my favorite historical figures. So in the midst of all this and George Floyd and everything else, and these 2 gentlemen leaving us at a time when we think they're needed so much, but maybe it's the kind of the wake-up call that it's time for the new guard to come in, as Councilwoman Green had alluded to earlier. This isn't a time, and it's a time to grieve, but it's also a time to action and know that it's time to pick up that torch and run with it, and we're looking for those people to do it. So I'm going to end my time today and yield the rest of it in a moment of silence, and I hope my council colleagues join me for CT Vivian. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Londo. Sorry.
Good evening. Good night.